This is Leticia Gallegos, and because, hey, we have to expect it. We've had some technical difficulties this morning. We appreciate you being on. We have some great information for you today. You cannot see my face, our faces, but we are here, and if we get that fixed here shortly, we'll come on. So Sal, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I've been accused of breaking the camera before, so this was probably another session. But our goal today is to shed some light on the process of selling a HUD home. We have been a HUD listing broker with Kronos Solutions since 2010. Kronos Solutions is a HUD asset manager presently responsible for the entire state of Texas as well as some other states. In 2010 and the years that followed, there were a lot of HUD homes on the market, partly due to the financial crisis of 2008. At that time, some realtors were familiar with HUD home buying process because of the sheer volume of available homes. But in recent years, there have been less HUD homes on the market, so fewer realtors may not be familiar with the process at all. Today, Leticia is going to present successfully selling HUD homes. This should serve as a refresher course to some of you and an introduction to others. I hope you will see the opportunities available, such as the ability to advertise HUD homes as a way to meet new buyers and help them buy a home, or using the $100 down payment program on FHA finance insured HUD homes that may help one of your present buyers get in a home. Everyone should find something in this presentation that will make your time well spent. And now I want to turn it over to my better half, Leticia Gallegos. As CEO of HREBA, some of you are used to hearing her talk about HREBA, but today the subject is successfully selling HUD homes. Here's Leticia.
Thank you, Sal. I want to talk about HREBA. My wish is that we would never have HUD homes, right? Because when we have foreclosed properties, that means that a family has been displaced. And as an organization, we try to do a good job of making sure that that doesn't happen. But with this crisis that we're in, it's just inevitable long term. So what we want for you today to learn is the process of successfully selling HUD homes. So when the time arrives that you are showing a HUD home, you'll know the process and you can represent your buyer in that way. Before I go on, Natalia, you are managing the PowerPoint. So can you backspace just one? Okay, and so before we get started with the presentation, it's really important that we recognize our sponsor. We have been very fortunate that with these webinars, we continue to have our sponsors backing us up. And that's really important. That's really important for us to be able to do this. So our sponsor for today's webinar is National Bank of Texas. They're a local bank here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They've been so supportive. They're basically our founding sponsor. They've been with us from the beginning. HREBA has been in existence for 5 years here in Texas, in Tarrant County. And so we want a big shout out to National Bank of Texas. Thank you for sponsoring us today, National Bank of Texas. So we anticipate that there will be questions. I'll go over the PowerPoint presentation, and I anticipate that there'll be questions. So if you have a question, we have a Q&A, let's see, we have a Q&A box down at the bottom. And so we'll be tackling your questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to type in your questions as you have them, and we'll be happy to answer them. And if we don't have an answer, we will definitely get one for you. So the first few slides are an overview, and then we'll get into much more detail as we get further into the slides. So because I don't have control of sharing my screen, let's see, I'll ask Natalia to go to the next slide. So next slide, Natalia. All right, so the HUD M&M contracts. So since 1999, HUD has been outsourcing their foreclosed properties under M&M contracting process. HUD does not want to be in the real estate business. HUD does, they don't want to do that. But because of FHA financing and the defaults, then the properties come back to HUD. So as most of you know, HUD stands for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So in 2010, and that's when Showcase Realty started listing homes, was 2010 when they launched their third generation of its management and marketing program. So that's when they initially started that third generation. So what we've heard from Chronos Solutions is that 2 weeks ago, they launched the 3.9 still in the third generation, but 3.9 process. So it'll probably be 10 to 12 months or 10 to 14 months before it's awarded officially. So I think it's anticipation, and we don't know with this COVID what the future holds. So that's the kind of the brief on where we are. But eventually you probably will be seeing more HUD properties on the market, but the unknown is when. The M&M contractors manage the marketing of single family properties owned by or in custody of HUD. They're called HUD homes. There are three primary M&M contractors. There's the asset manager who markets and sells the property, and Chronos Solutions is an asset manager. And then there's the field service manager who they preserve the property. They mow the lawn, they do the initial inspection, they do trash out if the house needed to be trashed out. They winterize, that's the field service manager. And then there's the mortgagee compliance manager that takes care of claims and title. Next slide, Natalia. So what is a HUD home? So a HUD home is an FHA insured mortgage that has gone into default. So these are FHA loans that were made, they went into default. The lender acquires the property, whether it's Bank of America, Wells Fargo, any of the lenders, they acquire the property. They submit a claim with FHA, and then the FHA conveys ownership to HUD, and then HUD is left with the property. So HUD will then sell the home through their asset manager, in this case, Chronos Solutions. And like Sal mentioned before, Chronos Solution is the asset manager for the 1D territory and the 2D. So 1D is all of North Texas. I believe it's Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona, and then the 2D is South Texas, all the way to the from North Texas south. Includes Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and all that. So they cover the entire state at this moment. That is all subject to change. So then HUD will then sell the property through the asset manager, and it will be listed with a local real estate broker. The HUD home can be a single family residence, a townhome, a condominium, or any other type of residence up to 4 units, a fourplex, for example. Next slide. So the benefits of buying HUD homes is that HUD will pay up to 3% of your buyer's closing costs. Now you have to ask for those closing costs when you submit your bid. And we'll get into detail about how to submit your bid. HUD homes are very different from your regular 1 to 4 family transaction, your paper offers. And the reason we thought this was very timely and important for you to learn if you're a new realtor, and a refresher for those that have sold HUDs in the past, is that we listed a property a few weeks ago, and we started getting paper offers. So it was evident that a lot of realtors are not up to date on this training about successfully selling HUD homes. So 3% of closing costs. Right here, I want to tell you that HUD does not pay for a title policy. And later on, I'll tell you what they do pay for, and also others that they don't pay for. So if you're requesting a title policy for your purchaser, you have to include that amount in closing costs if you want HUD to pay for that title policy. If a condo or townhome, the project approval is not required. That's a benefit with HUD, because you don't need any involvement from HOAs or anything like that. So FHA, insured escrow finance types have options of doing an FHA standard loan with escrow repairs up to $10,000. So the IE on that point is insured with escrow, and we'll get into those types. You can also do a FHA 203K for owner occupant rehab loan options. That's a benefit. I know there's some lenders out there that are doing 203Ks, and they're good at it. And so if it is insured with escrow, you or have FHA financing, you can do those repairs. Owner occupants have a priority in the bidding period, and we'll get into that as well. Low earnest money deposits, $500, $1,000, or $2,000. So $2,000 is the maximum earnest money deposit that HUD requires. All homes listed on HUDhomestore.com are nationwide. You can find them all nationwide homes on the website. So please make a note of that website, HUDhomestore.com. We'll learn more about that in a minute. And they give HUD, the benefit to buying a HUD home is they give quick response to bids. Usually within 24 hours you have an answer. So what I'm gonna say about that here is HUD is not gonna wait to see what kind of bids they get. You know, you have a deadline to make your offer, and they look at the numbers. There's no emotion, they look at the numbers. So that's how HUD works. Next slide. Who can purchase a HUD home? So we talked about owner occupants. So you can purchase a HUD home if you have not purchased a HUD property as an owner occupant within the past 2 years. You must live in the property as your primary residence at least 12 months. And you can submit your offers during the exclusive and the extended listing periods. And we'll get into the exclusive and the extended listing periods in a minute. Investors. Investors can purchase HUD homes, but they are last in line to submit offers. And they can submit their offers during the extended listing period only. And then there's good neighbor next door. This is a really important to know, because especially right now when our people in the front lines, you know, they're going through so much right now through COVID. This is a program that could really benefit them. So qualified law enforcement officers, teachers, firefighters, and EMTs may bid on single unit homes in a revitalization area and get 50% discount off the listed price. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Can submit, the good neighbor next door can submit offers on eligible properties during the lottery period only. Okay, and we'll get into that also. Nonprofits can make offers on HUD homes, but they have to be registered HUD nonprofits. They have to be registered on HUDhomestore.com to make an offer. Next slide. So this slide is really important. It's the owner-occupant certification. So owner-occupant purchasers and the selling broker, that's you if you're selling a HUD home, are required to certify that the purchaser will live in the property as their primary residence for 12 months. So please don't think or don't let an investor kind of pressure you into saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna live there 12 months, and you know he's not going to, because falsifying information regarding owner-occupant status is considered a felony, and it's punishable with a fine of up to $250,000 and a prison sentence or a prison sentence of no more than 2 years. So it's not worth it, guys. So the purchaser and the selling broker can be investigated. And in the past, between 2010 and 2015, they were checking to make sure that the properties did have, sporadically, of course, they were checking to make sure they were living there. And it used to be, I think, 2 years that they had to live in the property. Now it's 12 months. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about the good neighbor next door. I went in last night to check and see if there was a good neighbor next door property available in Texas. And I found one in Amarillo. And if I remember correctly, it was Jordan Street in Amarillo. If we have attendees from Amarillo, I think though the deadline was last night at midnight. But there's not a whole lot of them because they have to, well, first of all, there's not a whole lot of HUD homes right now. But they have to be in revitalization areas. So let me start from the top. So law enforcement officers, pre-kindergarten through 12th grade teachers, firefighters, and EMTs can contribute to a community through revitalization. And so that's why HUD offers them a substantial incentive by discounting the property 50% of the list price. They have to live in the property for 36 months before they can sell or rent. And eligible single-family homes located in revitalization areas are listed exclusively for sale through the Good Neighbor Next Door sales program. In a minute, we'll show you the HUD Home Store website. We'll talk about more of how to search for them. This has property details on this slide. Only properties that show Good Neighbor Next Door as eligible bidders on the HUDhomestore.com can receive that. Okay, so so this is kind of, it has the HUD case number on there, and then it says eligible bidders, and it says Good Neighbor Next Door only. So during the lottery period is about 7 days, and it has to say Good Neighbor Next Door in order for it to be eligible. Next slide. Okay, so as is policy, okay, all HUD homes are sold in their as is condition. HUD does not warrant the condition of its properties, and it will not make any repairs or provide any credit for required repairs. They will not allow the purchaser to make any repairs prior to closing for any reason. We saw some of this in the past where even when you're under contract, you start painting, you start doing landscaping, none of that is allowed. HUD strongly urges every potential homebuyer to get a professional home inspection prior to closing. So that's really important, just like any other property, but especially HUD homes. And because of HUD's as-is policy, HUD homes can often be a great opportunity for those homebuyers in search of a fixer-upper. Not every HUD home needs fixing up, but if one does, it can be a real bargain. Next slide. Showing HUD homes. So homes are vacant with a standard MLS lockbox at the time of listing. If keys are missing from the lockbox, please contact the listing broker to have it replaced. On HUDhomestore.com, it will show that in a minute, where there's tabs and it shows who the listing broker is. Please note that all purchasers must be accompanied by a state licensed broker or agent when viewing the HUD home. This includes even if it's under contract and escrow. And take into consideration also that there are no utilities in HUD homes. They will not turn on utilities. So there won't be any air conditioning going. There's not going to be any light. So you have to watch for getting, in nighttime, you can't really turn on any lights, or water. There's no water either. Next slide. Okay, so let's get into the HUDhomestore.com. Next slide. Okay, so this is really, really important, registration. For all of you new agents out there, you have to register at HUDhomestore.com. And if you're employed by a HUD registered broker, so your broker has to be registered, and your broker has to have a NAID number. Okay, so a NAID is required to submit a bid, but it's not required to show the home. But if you want to submit a bid, you do have to have it, and you have to renew it annually. So if you're a broker out there and you know that you had a NAID number back when, it has to be renewed. And the renewal process now is electronically through HUDhomestore.com. So again, each selling broker and agent must register as a bidder on HUDhomestore.com. We saw that a lot in the last couple of weeks, that agents were not registered. So that's really important. The principal broker, the office, must have a valid NAID, like I said, and have completed the registration process before any associate brokers or selling agents can register. And the broker cannot register with more than one NAID per state license. If there are several agents in different locations in a state that want to register, all must register under a single NAID number. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the screen of the HUDhomestore.com. You see where it has the red circle over bidder. If you try to click on register, nothing will happen. But when you click on bidder, then it opens up this screen here. So you assign yourself a username, a password, and you confirm your password, and then it'll ask you some security questions. It will also ask for your broker's NAID number. Next slide. Okay, so this is the second part of that. And see where on the right where it says NAID number, and it's required, that's where you put the NAID. And then you put your license, if you're a selling agent, you put your license number there and the expiration. You see where it says license date and it's not a required field, you can leave that blank. But your expiration, you do have to. All right, next slide. Okay, so if you have questions about the website, we can answer questions. We don't have more slides of the actual process, but we will go over that as well. Financing types. We talked about insurable. Insurable means that they are insurable to get an FHA loan, FHA 203B financing. And they don't have any minimum property requirement repairs. You can also do a 203K financing with insurable. Insurable with escrow means that the property needs repairs before it can qualify. It qualifies for FHA 203B with a repair escrow. And title companies that are Title companies that have experience with HUD closings, they hold it's a way they hold a repair escrow and all that. So check with your title company about how that would be handled. But so NPR repairs of $10,000 or less, the purchaser may add the cost of the NPR repairs to their financing, and HUD does not provide a credit for repairs. And then we have uninsurable properties. They do not qualify for FHA 203B financing. Typically, these properties have repairs that are needed exceeding $10,000 or may not meet other guidelines for FHA financing. Next slide. Okay, so these are the listing periods. The lottery is 7 days. All uninsured homes, all homes that do not qualify for FHA 203B financing will be in lottery. All uninsured homes start in the lottery period. The only insured homes that start in lottery period are insured single unit properties in a revitalization area. That's why the good neighbor next door properties are during lottery, because they have to be in a revitalization area. The next listing period is the exclusive period. So let me just say about lottery. When a property is in lottery, it is not listed in your MLS. So the HUDhomestore.com website is up to the minute and the most accurate. Even so, you can search that. You can save searches on HUDhomestore.com. You can use it also, as a tool where it'll alert you when when it comes into exclusive and so forth. So the exclusive, no bidding for investors. This is for insured properties, and it's a 15-day time frame. So 15 days to submit your offers, and they're all opened at the same time. So these are insured properties not in a revitalization area. They begin their listing periods here. The next listing period is the extended period. So that's if they're insured, it's 15 days. If they're uninsured, which means they don't qualify for FHA financing, it's 5 days. All uninsured properties enter this 5-day exclusive period after the lottery period. So uninsured properties are also available during lottery, and they are not in the MLS. The next listing period is the extended period. And so all bidders may submit a competitive offer at that time. And it will say on there, thank you, Natalia, it says all bidders, eligible bidders on this slide at the bottom, all bidders. That means investors, owner occupants, all. So each listing detail page allows the following information, which is this. It allows the eligible bidders, the deadline. You'll know exactly when the deadline is. I have submitted an offer at like 11:45 at night on the last day, right before the deadline, and was able to submit it. And I might go ahead and tell you that when you're submitting an offer, you have to have all your information in front of you. You have to have the names of the purchasers, their email addresses, their address, their social, all the information in front of you, because guess what? They only allow you like 15 minutes to complete the bid. Otherwise, you have to start over. Next slide. So this is the listing detail. So the listing information can be found on the right property tab, property information tab. So there's tabs, blue tabs that go across the homepage of HUDhomestore.com. And so this is property information. So it'll have the list date, the listing period, again, the deadline. It'll give you the list price, the financing, FHA financing. This example is insured with escrow, and whether it's eligible for 203K. It says subject to an FHA appraisal. Let me tell you that FHA or HUD does do an appraisal, I believe, I'm almost certain, on all properties, insured or uninsured. So they will do an appraisal and they list it at what the appraisal came in at. That's been our experience. We may not like what the appraisal came in at because, you know, it's an opinion of an appraiser, but it is listed. So when you see a property listed, don't blame the listing broker because that's the appraisal that came in at that amount. Next slide. Property addendums. Okay, so these are the tabs that I was telling you about at the top with information, really important information. So property addendums are really, really important because there's a property disclosure that lists all the repair items that were found to be needed on there. The property condition report, that's what from the initial inspection and where they tested for any leaks, they tested electricity, that kind of thing, and the lead-based paint addendum. It's really important to look at those addendums. You can look at them prior to showing the house or discuss them with your purchaser because it really is important stuff. Okay. So the property information tab, the amenities, the addendums, and next to the addendums, I believe, is the broker information. Okay, next slide. All right, so now you're ready to submit an offer. Okay, so let's do it. Next slide. Bid submission. All bids must be submitted electronically on HUDhomestore.com. So as I was saying before, you're given an allotted time, so you have to finish it during that time. So line 3 is the bid amount, the sale price for the property. What are you bidding? That will be electronically. So on the website, when you click on the case number, it brings information about the property. And then towards the middle of the page, it has a tab to make an offer. And you click that tab, and then that's when the actual offer form comes up. So the bid amount, closing costs. Remember we talked about up to 3% of the bid amount, HUD will pay in closing costs up to 3%. Selling broker commission, up to 3% of the bid amount, or $1,000 for enhanced commission listings. So what's an enhanced commission listing? So basically what that says is that HUD will pay you a minimum of $1,000 as a selling broker or selling agent. There may be a property that's listed for, you know, for $40,000 or $30,000, and, you know, 3% would not even, you know, meet that amount. So minimum is $1,000 commission. Up to 3% of the bid amount. Well, what does that mean, up to 3%? Don't I get the whole 3%? Well, that they say up to 3% there because if you feel like you want to rebate a little bit of that to your purchaser or something, or adjust that so the numbers can come in good for your purchaser, you can do that. That's why it says up to 3. If you put 3, it'll be 3. And the listing broker, the commission on a listing broker is 3%. And net to HUD, so line 7, once you put in all your bid amount, your closing costs, your commission, then net to HUD is line 7. And that's what HUD looks at. So the bid amount minus closing costs, commissions, that's what HUD looks at. Next slide. So closing costs. Closing costs to be paid by HUD can be requested for owner-occupant bids only. Investors cannot ask for closing costs. Any unused closing costs at closing will not be credited to the purchaser at closing. Okay, so if you ask for more than you needed, you don't get any kind of credit. Closing costs automatically paid by HUD. Proration of taxes, they automatically pay those and any special assessments. If you're in an HOA area or a condo, they pay transfer fees. The cost to provide HOA documents or condominium documents to a purchaser, they pay for that. They pay the escrow fee of $200 where applicable, and they pay for recording fees. So title companies that charge an escrow fee, if you're asking, well, title companies charge more than that for an escrow fee. Well, if they're doing HUDs, they accept the fee that HUD is paying. So that's it. Next slide. Okay, so the bids are reviewed the business day following the bid submission deadline property for the data for the property. A bid is accepted if it is the highest net to HUD above the minimum net established for the specific property. In other words, if you've looked at online auctions, for example, they have a reserve. So that's basically what that means. They have a minimum net that they want on that property. And so they'll accept the highest net to HUD that's above that reserve or meets the reserve. If all offers are below the minimum, a counter offer will be sent to all bidders with the recommended net to HUD for resubmission. So you'll get a counter offer, an email. Everything is done by email. So if you submit an offer and it's not quite, it's a low offer or something, they may counter offer and tell you what HUD needs to net. If an offer is accepted, a notification will be emailed to the selling agent and the listing broker. Notifications are not sent if an offer is not accepted. So if your offer is way off, they accepted another offer, you will not get notified, but you can go into HUDhomestore.com, log in, and you can see the status of your offers. That's why I say HUDhomestore.com is really good tool for you to use when you're selling HUD homes successfully. The current bid status can be, I just said that, HUDhomestore.com. So it'll show canceled if your offer was not accepted. Okay. All right, so you've won the bid, okay? So they've accepted your bid, and this is what happens next. You get a bid checklist verification. So you as an agent have to verify your broker information, make sure your broker's email address is accurate. You verify all the information because they're taking the information you put into the offer when you submitted your offer. So you have to verify that. You verify the purchaser's information. You verify the title company. And again, because you as the buyer, I guess I hadn't mentioned this before, you as the buyer, the purchaser chooses their title company. HUD does not have a choice of title companies. Your purchaser does. So you verify the closing agent, the title company that you're going to use, and you upload the pre-approval at that time. When you win the bid is when you upload the pre-approval or proof of funds. The approval letter has to be dated within 30 days, and you upload also the proof of funds for cash purchases, and you upload the earnest money receipt confirmation. So you've won the bid, you're going to get this verification. Immediately you're going to call the listing broker and you're going to say, because we as a listing broker, we get the same notifications, so we reach out to you usually pretty quickly. And then we say, okay, you can deliver the earnest money, and then we sign a receipt for you. The earnest money has to be in certified check or money order, made payable to the title company, okay? And so that's on the next slide. Next slide. Okay, so this talks about proof of funds. So if you're paying cash, you must show proof of funds equal to or greater to the purchase price. And if you're obtaining financing, it talks about the pre-qualification letter. I've gone over most of that. So next slide. Okay, so this is the earnest money deposit. We talked about earnest money before. So if the sales price of the house is $50,000 or less, the earnest money deposit is $500. If the sales price of the property is $50,001 to $250,000, the earnest money deposit is $1,000. And if the sales price is $250,001 or more, the earnest money deposit is $2,000. So you must deliver that to the listing broker who will execute the receipt. And again, I said certified check or money order made payable to the buyer's title company. Next slide. All right, so HUD is using DocuSign. No more signing with blue ink. Those of you brokers that have been around for a while. Everything is done electronically through DocuSign. So once the asset manager receives the bid checklist where you made sure everything was correct, once it's approved, the HUD e-signature contract package will be issued. The contract package will be forwarded to the correct signer after the previous signer has executed. So first it'll come to you as the selling agent. Okay, so you're going to review everything. You're going to ensure that all names and addresses and amounts are all correct. You do not sign the contract as a selling agent. You just review it and just make sure it's right. When you complete that review, the package is emailed to your broker, to the selling broker of your firm. The selling broker electronically executes the e-signature contract package. So right here, I'm going to say you have to keep your broker informed to be on the lookout for it, or his assistant or whatever, because that is coming. You know, you communicate with your broker when it comes to HUD Homes, because they're going to get an email and you don't want it delayed at that point. So the broker signs off on it, then it goes to the primary purchaser, they sign off on it, the secondary purchaser, if applicable, signs off on it, and any additional purchasers in succession as you entered them into your offer. And then it goes to the title company, and then the title company executes the contract package, and then it goes back to the asset manager and they execute the contract package. Next slide. All right, so that's how it works. Now you're under contract, everybody has signed, so you're under contract. Let's talk about property inspection and closing real quick. Okay, so an owner-occupant purchaser has 15-day inspection contingency period. This is not a 15-day option period. It's a 15-day inspection period. There is no option when you are purchasing a HUD home. Okay, so this is for inspections. And these are inspections only for anything other than the repairs that were disclosed in the property condition report and the property disclosure, because you already know some of the repairs it needs, but if you want, you should have an inspection anyway to see what else, so you'll know what other things are required for repair. So following the contract ratification, you can request from the field service manager, not the asset manager. So you'll get a list of phone numbers, who's who, when you execute your contract, and you'll have the information about the field service manager, and you can you can request that they activate utilities for your inspection and appraisal. if you are doing conventional or any other. Okay, so the utilities must be deactivated after a 3-day period. Deposits and fees for activating fees may be required by the FSM. Those are on a case-by-case basis. Okay. Again, the asset manager does not manage the field service manager deposits or utility activation. Next slide. Okay, so there are some restrictions. On the property condition report, if the plumbing test failed, they will not let you activate the water. If there is an electrical panel problem, on the disclosures that are available to you before you make an offer, they will not allow you to turn on the electricity. In those cases, if you have to do your due diligence with your client. You'd have to bring in a plumber to do some kind of air test in the plumbing. You'd have to bring an electrician that has access to generator or something to do those kinds of inspections. And the same thing with AC. Next slide. Lead-based paint. So if the property was built prior to 1978 and is being purchased with FHA financing, HUD will perform a lead-based paint inspection. If the property is positive for lead-based paint, and the stabilization costs $4,000 or less, HUD will stabilize and then retest prior to closing, $4,000. If the property is positive and it'll cost more than $4,000, then what HUD will do is that, or the purchaser will need to change financing to conventional or a 203K. And HUD will give you a $4,000 credit for that stabilization. Or you may cancel the contract if you don't want to put in more than $4,000 for that, or change financing, or can't change financing. Then you can cancel the contract and get a refund of your earnest money deposit. Next slide. Okay, contract negotiations. Once an offer is accepted and the purchase price, closing costs, and commissions cannot be negotiated, including increasing the bid amount so the net to HUD does not change. Based on the findings of the property inspection, there's no negotiations. Based on the financing of the appraisal that your lender did, no, you can't negotiate. Any assistance programs, down payment assistance programs that you have to negotiate, can't do that after you've executed the contract. Any lender conditions, lender required repairs, can't negotiate that in any other circumstances. So if the purchaser cannot close under the terms of the accepted offer, they will need to request a cancellation of the contract. And it's important that, that you know those addendums. Next slide. So if your purchaser cannot close and you need to cancel the transaction, you have to submit a contract release form signed by the purchaser and supporting documents saying why, so you don't lose your earnest money, or they take that into consideration. So they can either refund, split, or for the forfeiture of their earnest money deposit will be determined by the asset manager. So you have to send information. You really have to document information, because lack of supporting documentation will result in 100% forfeiture of their earnest money. You don't want to do that to your client. So if the contract expires without a contract extension or a contract release, it'll be automatically canceled and your client will lose their earnest money deposit. Next slide. Contract extensions. Okay, so things come up, right? Things come up, closing is extended, that happens, but you have to, as a selling agent, you have to be on top of these timelines. HUD will give you an extension, but it'll cost money. So they do them in 15-day increments only. So if it fails to close if it fails to close, you're gonna forfeit that extension fee. So you have to really stay on top of it. So if 15-day increments, $25 a day is the extension fee. So you'd have to pay $375 for your purchaser to get an extension. So that's why it's important for you to communicate with your lender and make sure all that's. And you may request a waiver of that fee, but it depends if they want to accept it. Okay, next slide. Addendums. Okay, so all the addendums are not found in zip forms. They're addendums put together by the asset manager. So you find all the contract addendums at chronosolutions.com. Sometimes you have to add a purchaser to the contract. Sometimes you have to remove a purchaser. Sometimes you have to modify the purchaser's name, change financing, extend the contract, or release the contract. These addendums are at chronosolutions.com. And if you need other addendums, they'll have their attorneys write them up for you. Do not submit any state addendum forms at all. Nothing from zip forms, nothing from TREC. Okay, next slide. Okay, prior to close, you cannot do any improvements on the property, no landscaping. You cannot occupy the property, change the locks, store any of your personal property in there. You cannot list the property for sale. If you have an investor, you can't do any of that. And you cannot no one can enter the property without you, the agent, or the listing broker. And these actions are really prohibited. And you're in breach of contract if that happens. And you could forfeit your earnest money. Next slide. Okay, so here I'm going to tell you all that we are like almost out of time. We started a little bit late, so please hang with us because we have a drawing at the end of this and we want you to be here for that. I only have a couple more slides left. So property closing. So the escrow officer should submit, this is another thing that's important, your title company should submit the closing disclosure to the asset manager 5 days prior to your scheduled closing date. The asset manager will review the preliminary CD and request any corrections, and once it's approved, then you can proceed with closing. You will not receive, your client will not receive a key because they have to rekey the property immediately after closing. Next slide. Okay, so this is a real good thing for you, and Sal Gallegos mentioned this in before I came on, is advertising HUD homes. This is an opportunity for you to benefit from HUD homes. So you can advertise. Any agent, may I advertise HUD homes? Yes, any agent may advertise HUD homes, but you have to abide by the following guidelines. You have to advertise them in a professional way, ethical way, in a positive manner. Please refer to the properties as HUD homes, HUD owned, or HUD acquired. Always include the equal housing opportunity logo, or you can just say equal opportunity, equal housing opportunity on there. On all advertising. You can do on websites, you can advertise it on your website, and I'll get into more of that. Next slide. So thanks to, these are the guidelines. Note any floodplain zones or anything warning about the property. Adhere to all federal, state, city, and real estate commission advertising regulations, your Truth in Lending Act, when advertising HUD homes. When showing HUD homes, always secure the property, all the doors, windows. Probably a question that will come up is what about open houses? Well, just take into consideration there's no utilities. You want to show the house in the best possible way, and you cannot do that when there's no utilities. please put the key back in the lockbox. You can print property flyers directly from HUDhomestore.com. There's somewhere there that you can click on there, and it'll show, it'll print the flyer. You can print flyers directly from HUDhomestore.com. You can advertise financing programs such as 203B, Repair Escrow, and 203K Streamline. Next slide. You cannot advertise homes before they are listed for sale to the public. So if there's a lottery home, you cannot advertise it until it's on the MLS. You cannot use HUD or FHA in your URL at all. You cannot state or imply that the price of the property differs from the list price shown on the website. You cannot give out keys. You cannot refer to the HUD homes as distressed, repo, foreclosed, repossessed, must sell, or any adjectives with notable negative connotation. You can place signage in any HUD. You cannot place any signage or flyers or anything in the property. Only the listing broker can do that. And you cannot destroy, damage, or remove the advertising or signage of another registered selling or listing agent. Okay, so where can you advertise? You can advertise anywhere: newspapers, magazines, flyers, billboards, seminars, TV, radio, message boards, Facebook, social media, and Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can do postcards and mail them to the neighbors, or any kind of email list you can find. Next slide. Okay, so we went through a lot there. So Q&A. Natalia, do we have questions?
We do. We just had a couple of questions. I know that several of you have asked for a copy of the presentation, and unfortunately, we cannot provide that presentation as it's proprietary, but I can tell you that this webinar has been recorded, and you can also visit us at www.hrebaconnect.org. That's HREBA, HREBA, connect.org. And you can message us there and we can provide more information for you.